And Hollye joins us, and I must say, your book is a beautiful book. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful book and a beautiful concept because, you know, having lived with friends and family members who've gotten this particular diagnosis, it is, they're on the internet, they're calling, there's so much confusion around it. So now you can go to one place, and not only from a place of someone who's been through it, but actually from a healthcare provider.
And we were talking, Dr. Rachel, about some of the practical advice that you give. No one thinks about it. No one thinks about when you're gonna have to undergo treatment for cancer. No one's thinking about, well, what do I pack to take to the hospital? What do I, but you have sections in the book that cover these really important practical things.
Absolutely, and it's sort of the, you know, what you'd sit down and talk with a girlfriend about, you know, and we do this before women do, before they have a baby or as they're going through really difficult times. And so the section of the book called Practical Matters is sort of a play on words because the practical really does matter. And so I include the lists of what to take to the hospital if indeed someone's going to have surgery, what to take to chemo, how to handle fears of needles, which so many people have. And this advice is what I dispensed as a nurse and a social worker, and then actually had to use myself as a patient.
Ooh, and Hollye, the part of the book that really got me is the part where you talk about talking to your kids about it, because I've had some people, you know, maybe not tell them for a while, pretend that this isn't happening, and the kids are seeing mommy go through this and wondering what's happening. So talk about what inspired you to really write that part.
Well, I've been a pediatric hospice nurse for a long time, and what I know from my professional experience as a nurse and now my personal experience with cancer is that children always know. And even if they're not told, they still know. And the truth is that when left with bits and pieces of information, then their imagination has the capacity to create things that are far worse than reality. And so many adults very lovingly intend, with intention to protect their children, but they're actually not, because they do know. And I know how emotionally burdensome this is. I mean, it is rotten to have to sit down and tell your children that you have cancer. But the silver lining is that there are tools to help, whether it's in resources like books or certain particular websites, there is help available.
Now, you've seen a lot in your life. Social worker, nurse, taking care of pediatric hospice patients. You've been surrounded by a lot of really sad things, but you found hope. When people are sick, they often aren't thinking clearly. What are the most important questions you've learned that people should ask their doc when they're given this diagnosis?
You know, at the time of a diagnosis, you want to ask things like, what additional tests do I need and when? When do I need to make a decision about treatment? What treatment options do you suggest and why? The why question is very important because you want to have a full understanding.
And when you use the word options there, which I love, which is what are my options and why, as opposed to what are you going to do to me?
Right.
What can we decide together? I love that perspective.
Absolutely. Well, and I know this both clinically and now as a patient that when we're going through very difficult things, we really need to partner with our physician team so that decisions are made jointly. Right. And that affects outcomes in the most positive of ways.
Now, you know, I noticed your list of questions. You didn't ask, what's my prognosis? How long do I have to live or anything like that, which are some of the main questions that people who are diagnosed with cancer usually have. Why did you leave that one out?
Because I think, you know, there is time to think about that. There are certain things that you need to ask right away, and you need to take the steps to figure out what the big picture is.
And what I love about Hollye's book, it's called The Silver Lining, is that even if you aren't diagnosed with cancer, but someone you love is, it can help you to figure out how you can be of aid to someone that you love. Hollye, thank you for writing this book.
Absolutely.